So it's Kim Juchem, but almost I go with the Juchem. Is also fine. Yeah, first name. I'm not Korean. It's a proper Danish first name. I'm not even Danish, but my parents thought they messed me up for life with the girl's first name. So it's Kim. Let's make this as interactive as possible. You're all hyped up now after coffee. This is a fairly small audience, so let's make the most of it. And if you have any questions, just kind of shout. I'm here today to talk about eSIM and IoT and why this potentially can be the rocket fuel for IoT. And therefore, just kind of a quick introduction for those of you who don't know Truphone. We are an MVNO. We are a full MVNO in 9 countries, from the US to Australia, including the UK, Germany, France, Spain, etc. And we've embraced eSIM technology fairly early on because we're also the bootstrap provider of Apple iPads outside of the US for many years now. And therefore, we built our own eSIM stack. And then finally, we decided, well, we're using our own eSIM stack. Why don't we sell the eSIM stack to other operators and MVNOs and MNOs across the world without our connectivity, obviously. And I'm responsible for all the procurement elements of Truphone on the wholesale side, so roaming, MVNO, interconnect, and all that good stuff, and at the same time selling eSIM technology, eSIM platforms, entitlement platforms to operators and OEMs across the world. And we have customers like KPN, Masmobil, Axiata Group who use our eSIM platforms with their connectivity. And talking about eSIM, I don't know, hands up who has an eSIM in their phone today? See? And this is the telco event, right? So even the telco people have not embraced eSIM because that plastic, it still makes sense to buy a $1,000 device and put a paper clip in the side to stick a plastic card in it to make it work. That doesn't sound really digital, but a lot of things has happened in the last 18 months. One obviously was the iPhone 14 launch in the US, which is eSIM only. We work very closely with Apple, and the reason for that is the rest of the world wasn't ready for it, which is a statement, right? In the US, you can, 3 operators, you basically cover everything. In Europe, they didn't feel that this was something they want to do. Let's see if there's an iPhone 15 that's eSIM only outside of the US. Let's see. But also operators in Europe have started to embrace eSIM, and Vodafone roaming services have launched something where they allow an eSIM to be used for a travel application in an app, which is something that Airlo, Lotus Flare, and Truphone are doing already for a long time, but so now also one of the main operator brands has embraced an eSIM digital distribution of a roaming eSIM to customers. And then we're fairly proud to be working with an operator in the Ukraine, and that market is of course going through a transition because infrastructure isn't there, and they have embraced eSIM. We see a lot of eSIM traction in the Ukraine for new devices, and that's also kind of shows you the potential of eSIM when physical infrastructure isn't there, and then you can rely on digital infrastructure to still go to market. And then this is just one of our customers, a company called Lotus Flare with the Nomad app, and they do their channel and they sell eSIM enabled travel SIMs to customers, and basically we sell through them, but they also sell others. So a lot of things have happened, but eSIM is really great, not only for the digital distribution part, but also from an ecological point of view. And if you compare an eSIM to a plastic SIM, and a plastic SIM is 60 times more CO2 from production, distribution, compared to an eSIM and the digital warehousing that you need around that one. So also something, if you want to be a ecological brand and want to be a green perceived brand, then why are you still doing plastic cards, shipping, handling, warehousing, and you could go into eSIM as well. There's a sustainability report on our website. If you're interested, you can download that there. So the eSIM is definitely on, and it's on across a multitude of devices. And there's always this this discussion on, from the public or from operators, yeah, we don't have enough devices. And then the device manufacturer says, yeah, but we don't have channel because we sell through the operators, and the operators don't really embrace eSIM. And then you have the SIM manufacturers that sell, well, let's say, well, we still rely on plastic so much because that's what is procured, and also the handset providers are not embracing it. But that, that flywheel has started to move ever since last year, September, and eSIM is definitely on, starting with consumer devices, moving into enterprise. Mobile device management with eSIM is so much easier, and then IoT is probably then the last one, because IoT still is struggling with a digital approach, which is kind of odd, but they still do. So let's look at it. Across the operator space, and I consider IoT players as operators in this space. There are 4 archetypes of operators. There's the ostrich that just put their head in the ground and say, well, this eSIM wave will go away, and we all know some of these organizations that just don't want to deal with it, and they will deal with it when it's mass market and proven, but they don't want to really embrace it. And then you have the goats, the big telcos that need to have it. They provide it to customers, but they really don't like it because they still like the traditional plastic processes around it. And one of these examples, you could, I don't know, there's a good example in Germany with O2. When you want an eSIM, they ship you a plastic card. And then you need to take the plastic card and stick it into your phone, and then they convert the plastic card into an eSIM. They don't have a process for an eSIM direct in 2023. And also some, maybe you have seen this, like, excuse me? Okay. But
I was going to say usually it's not so good process.
Yeah, but it shows you how reliant operators are on legacy systems, like where you marry the customer with the SIM card. That process is done when you take that card out of the warehouse and put it onto a paper letter and ship it. And that is when somebody scans the SIM card and scans the paper, and then the customer and the SIM card marry. Yeah, and we've seen it. We've seen customers printing QR codes on plastic cards to put it through a physical process to ship it out to a customer, because that's how we all work. That's how we used to work, and introducing eSIM is not only a process of, oh yeah, I just exchange a plastic card for a digital card, but it's also a digitization process on how you approach a market. And sorry for picking on O2 here, but it's just like, but there are others as well. But there are like these operators that we would say, well, they have all the resources and they really understand what's going on, but still, they're not embracing it fully across all channels, across all segments of their business. And then you have the Magpie. These are the operators that do everything, implement everything, but never follow up. We've also seen some of these in the industry. And then we have a few bulls that are really very, very bullish on eSIM and have implemented it together with a digitization strategy across warehousing, across all customer touch points in consumer, in B2B, but also in IoT. And there are only a few that really have done that. And then you can ask yourself, where do you and your organization sit in that sphere? And I think we all want to be the bulls, but more often we're somewhere else. Good. And then the question for me, what is holding us? If this is all so great, why does not everybody in this room have an eSIM? And why do we still see below 1% penetration of the eSIM versus plastic, even today? So I can only speak for Truphone, but if I look at all the deployments we've done and all the potential captive subs that all these operators would have, penetration is below 1%, excluding the Apple iPad. And why is this? Because there is a lot of protectionist thinking still in the market, because a digital distribution process lowers the barrier of change and therefore your switching costs are lower. And if you're a customer of somebody, they don't want to lower switching costs. They want to keep switching costs high, a bit like your phone number. Like you cannot port out because there's something wrong with the phone number. So the operators are really not educating customers about the benefits of eSIM. And the device manufacturers, except Apple, because they don't rely on the operator channel to sell, don't really educate customers about eSIM. And then you have the SIM manufacturers that still rely on a plastic revenue pool. If you look at a G&D and a Demia or Thales, probably 99% of their revenues come from plastic. For Truphone, we're a bit different. We don't have plastic, so we only have digital. That's why we don't sit on a profit pool. But there's a lot of protectionist thinking, but all the elements are already in play that could break this cycle. And I've just kind of had a couple of examples here. And one is eSIM and connectivity. Something we do as an operator, you saw, that makes sense. Why don't we distribute eSIM to all our devices before we ship them, so that a customer could activate a phone without the need of having a Wi-Fi connectivity before. So you take it out of the box and you just say, hey, I'm Kim, I'm a customer of O2 in Germany, and bam, here's my subscription, right? Wouldn't that be great? And that is called Bootstrap, and everybody who has that opportunity, who has an eSIM and connectivity, could provide Bootstrap connectivity. Yes, a question.
Can I ask a question? It's quite an interesting view without too much about what the customer wants.
Yeah.
Because I know many customers, myself included, that like the notion of a SIM.
Yeah.
So that I can take it out and I can move it very quickly. And let me tell you, it's not about protectionism in any operator. It's about the value. And what value does this drive? And what I see is customers like SIMs. They like it's something they're used to, it's something they know, it's something they understand. In a world where most customers do not understand anything about telco, this is a constant thing that they absolutely understand. So yeah, you can go nuts at the operators, good luck with that, but it's all about what the end customer wants.
Correct.
Right now, they still want SIMs. That's why there's still a bunch of phones out there that have SIMs, not because of operators, because the phone companies actually don't really care that much anymore about operators.
No, fair point. And I think it's a bit like when Apple abandoned the headphone jack. Like before that, we all said, well, we all want headphones with little cables. We can stick and now we all have Bluetooth headsets, and Apple made us switch, right? And now we wouldn't, we hate those tangly thingies. So I think it's an education process. And yes, if the operator says, well, my legacy customer base is happy with what they've been used to the last 35 years, that's fine. But I think the notion of switching your subscription to another phone does not necessarily need to be a physical process. It can be a digital process, and I think we as a community would need to enable this, because I think this could also drive value with more subscription, more connected devices at an easier pay. And therefore, I need to point out O2 Germany again. They have a great thing, because you get all the eSIMs. Once you have an eSIM, you can have up to, 10 eSIMs at no extra cost? Yeah, so that's great, right? Because once it's digital, so that's really good. So Bootstrap is one thing where you can expand market. Another thing is iSIM. So you have the eSIM capability and a chip, and you integrate the eSIM with a chip, then you have an iSIM. So a different form factor, which could also drive adoption into areas where devices are very small, or you don't want a separate SIM tray. And then a more complex element of connectivity, SIM provisioning, and service provisioning, which we call entitlement services, something for companion devices like Apple Watch. If you have an eSIM platform, and your entitlement platform can also manage second numbers, third numbers on secondary and companion devices, then you suddenly have a route to market with a Apple family setup or a Samsung family setup. Of course, with Apple, it's always hard to get that carrier bundle and to be relevant as a sales channel for them. But there are opportunities, and these are just three We say, if you embrace it, there's more to gain out there. And then if you think about the digital distribution element, this is more consumer than it is IoT, but IoT has the same thinking. You can distribute via any channel, and any channel could be just a billboard. You bring up a unified QR code in an airport. I was in Dubai last fall, and when you enter into the country, you hand in your passport, and they give you the passport back, and there's a little SIM card in it. So they have like a due subscription. You can sign up, and then this could have been an eSIM, right? Why do they do that this way? On a Coke can, QR codes, the first 500 or 5,000 customers that scan the code get a 1 gig for free, or you buy a 12-pack and you get a gig for free. All these sponsored connectivity plays could happen. And then this is a real example. You go on Amazon, on eBay in Australia, and you can buy a SIM card off eBay in Australia to travel to Thailand. And you just you click here, you get an email with the QR code, you scan the QR code, off you go. So distribution will radically change. Warehousing, customer interaction will radically change through this digital process. And of course, it makes it more disruptive. And if you think about the announcement which we saw on Friday, which had the stock price of AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon tumble in the US, was exactly when Amazon said, we're going to start distributing mobile connectivity to our Amazon Prime users, and maybe Amazon Prime users get their first 5 gig for free. That's something they want to do with Dish, but stock prices immediately dropped. I think T-Mobile dropped by 10% that day. It rebounded on Monday, but still, this is the disruptive potential of eSIM. Talking about IoT and why this could be rocket fuel, there's a new standard that was predefined already last year, but was finally signed off last month, which is called SGP 32 and 31, which is a horrible name, and the GSM hasn't thought about anything better here, but it's an eSIM standard that is based on the consumer standard. So the consumer standard is what you all hopefully have experienced already, a few of you definitely, is where you take your phone, you scan the QR code, or you're in an app and you download an eSIM. So the customer is in control, and the spec says the customer needs to actively say, yes, I want this eSIM to be installed. And that works great. And there's an M2M standard, which is used for metering and cars, and which is really complicated because you need to pre-burn and predefine the eSIM before you deploy it, which is crap. So what the GSMA has said, well, let's bring together the consumer element of customers in control of downloading the eSIM without the user interface, which is a customer actually saying, yes, I want this. And this is this SGP 31 or the IoT eSIM standard. We haven't come up with a better name, so whoever, there's still opportunity to name this. But the great thing here is that it's based on the consumer standard, so a lot of operators already have that, and a lot of MVNOs have that as well, and more OEMs and SIM manufacturers are also embracing that standard. And it has a little component that is defined, which is called the eIM, which is the connectivity or the eSIM management application that runs on the device. And whoever owns that eIM has the autonomy to say, yes, I want this eSIM to be downloaded, which means the eIM could be with the device manufacturer, it could be with the operator, or it could also be with the service provider. So think about that use case with a scooter. You have, let's say, you have BT is the connectivity provider of Tier here in London. I'm just making this up, I don't know that. Bolt or Tier is the service provider, and then somebody has built the little device, the scooter, which is now Tier branded. And Tier says, I want 20,000 e-scooters, and I put this eIM client on there. And then Tier can decide at what point in time the subscription that is on the Tier scooter can be exchanged with any other subscription. In the old world, in the M2M world, you needed to ask the operator to transfer your subscription out. this means there's a power shift from the operator to the service provider, and the service provider at any point in time can decide to upload a new eSIM profile onto that scooter, which means you can shift your entire fleet whenever you want to. Of course, there are contractual obligations. If I have a 3-year contract with BT, yes, I still have a 3-year contract with BT, but I could, 30 months in, I can say I want to switch switch the entire base. And the stickiness of connectivity, which we always had in the IoT world, where once a device is deployed, nobody will ever touch it, and this is eternal revenues coming as long as this device is out there. And we all remember the BMW use case, where still today there are 2G and 3G BMWs driving around the world, just generating revenues at 20 euros a gig retail. So this is a thing of the past if this standard is embraced, and we see a lot of traction from customers that are not traditional telcos right now. So IoT MVNOs, OEMs, device manufacturers are embracing that together with eSIM technology as well, to kind of get smaller devices. And that is really probably one of the most disruptive standards coming into the eSIM world and to the IoT world in a long time. And it has just been started. The standard has just been finalized. We've done a POC and a demo at the Mobile World Congress, which was really great because we were in Barcelona and we just bought an orange QR code, and we sent that QR code via our platform to an IoT device, and it worked flawless for 10 minutes. And then Orange realized that we sent the eSIM to a non-consumer device, and they blocked the connectivity. So it worked, right? So the mechanisms are working. You can bring, of course, you need to have then an IoT connectivity product that you send to that device, but it does work, and it's really, you can switch fleets immediately, and therefore, that's really one of the things that you should, as an operator who has an IoT division, look into. You don't need to talk to us, but talk to your SIM manufacturer or your eSIM provider, and SGP31 is a big thing if you really want to scale this up. So we think that because of that eSIM element, there's really the power shift from operator to consumer. You can see this in the IoT space, but you can also see it in the roaming travel space. There are so many alternatives when you travel. You just download your Thailand plan or your LATAM plan, and happy to go, and you get out of your primary host roaming relationship. This is something that's invisible because most of the consumers don't know about it, because consumers still think that plastic SIM cards is a great idea because nobody has told them about the benefits. And it's definitely sustainable, especially when you do large deployments in IoT, do 20, 30,000 devices a month. That's relevant over the course of a year or two. So definitely a lot of things happening there in the space to be watched, and I encourage you all to not be the magpie or the ostrich, but to be the bull in the room. Thank you.
Okay, it's my best bullish hat on, or head on, I should say. Has anybody got questions? Yeah?
Thank you. Kim, thank you very much for that. On the eSIMs topic, it's widely spreading around different network owners, operators, MVNOs. Everyone's trying to really answer the question of what's the problem we're trying to solve to switch. And the challenge that I keep hearing is, what do the customers accept, and in essence, what do customers want? So one of the options, the feature switching. So you mentioned it briefly about the example in Barcelona. Car manufacturers now are trying to do feature-based services, where things like eSIMs facilitate that, being able to switch on your hot seats and hot steering wheel. I hate that model personally. I would never buy a car.
No, me neither.
But Coming back to on the customer voice element, there's going to be a need. So as customer patterns change, people travel differently, consume information differently, different elements are going to be available. What part do you see the customer voice feeding into what eSIMs do moving forward? Because at the moment, so there's iSIMs coming in, there's probably going to be different iterations. But which elements do you see changing with the customer input?
Good question. I think we need to look at the different customer segments. So, consumer, B2B, enterprise, and IoT. On the consumer element, I think currently it's only the roaming use case. So I travel, I want get rid of my host primary operator because I don't feel that I'm well catered for if I travel outside of Europe especially, or from the US to Europe. That's the major use case. I also don't feel that there's a big differentiation today that somebody says, oh, I want 3 or 4 different eSIMs across my device estate. That's not really there. So most of the elements are travel and then companion devices, Apple Watch, Samsung Watch. These are the things that are driving. And then maybe one element, and maybe we're not the right age group here, but my son is 13, being 14 soon. All he does is shop via the internet. He doesn't feel the need to go to any store. And I think as the youth becomes more relevant from a purchasing point of view to operators, I think that shift on being more digital, being less brick and mortar, will also accelerate the adoption of eSIM. As I said, we today have 0.5% to 1% of eSIM penetration in a base. Just think about that going to 10%, so still 90% being on plastic and 10% being on eSIM. That's a 20 times increase in revenue and usage of that. So I personally feel that in the next 5 to 6 years we see in the excess of 50% eSIM penetration across the consumer base. So that's consumer. Enterprise is a bit different because there it's all about managing an estate, similar to IoT. But we see a lot of enterprise customers who want to activate 200 employees with one email, and you can do this with eSIM. You just get the emails, and then you just fire them out automatically. You can have a unified QR code where your entire French employee base just gets one QR code, and then 200 people can download that, and then they get their SIMs allocated. Also with bring your own device, this is becoming more and more important because if you get rid of somebody, you can just deactivate the SIM card immediately without needing to have access to the phone. That's also something where enterprise customers are very keen on. And then latest, the IoT bit is really the commercial leverage that eSIM gives you, and also not the need to do a truck roll if you want to exchange the connectivity. I think that's more like an insurance model for IoT at this point in time. And anything that's deployed today is gone, right? They will not embrace the new standard. So we're talking about future deployments as of 2024 going forward.